Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Mm.
We're going to be talking about racism today,
Okay.
but through a pretty unique lens, and that's the analogy of a virus.
Interesting.
Yeah. So our source material for this is Dr. Shungu H book, First Draft of Racism Was a Virus. How could we stop it spreading, and how would we eradicate it?
Okay.
And, you might be thinking a virus, really.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's a lot more thought-provoking than it sounds.
Yeah.
In fact, it raises some interesting questions right off the bat, like, could there be, like, asymptomatic carriers of racism?
Hmm.
What would the antigens be?
Right.
How do we build societal immunity? To help me unpack all of this, I've got our expert here.
Happy to be here.
So I want to ask you, when you first heard about this virus analogy, what was your initial reaction?
I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical at first.
Right.
I mean, racism is such a complex issue. Can you really just simplify it to a virus?
Right.
But as I went deeper into Dr. Margadza's work, I started to see how powerful this analogy could be. It's not about reducing racism to something simple, but rather, using a framework that we're all familiar with to help us understand the mechanisms of it.
Yeah.
Think about it. We've all lived through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
We learned about how viruses spread, how they affect different people, how we can protect ourselves. Dr. Magadza, she uses this shared experience to illuminate the ways that racism operates in our society.
That's a really good point, actually. Like,
Yeah.
using a common language to discuss something that we might not fully understand.
Right.
So how does Dr. Magadza actually connect the dots between racism and a virus? Where did those parallels come in?
Well, one of the first things she talks about is transmission.
Okay.
It's just like a virus can spread from person to person through contact,
Right.
Racist ideas can be transmitted through individuals, communities, and even through systems.
Wow.
It's not just about, those overt acts of hate that we see on the news, but those subtle, insidious ways these ideas can seep into our daily lives.
Like those everyday conversations where, someone might make an off-color joke or say something prejudiced without realizing it?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And that brings us to the symptoms of this racism virus.
Okay.
Dr. Magadza argues that we need to expand how we define what racism is.
Okay.
It's not just about, those blatant acts of discrimination, but those more subtle forms like microaggressions.
Have you ever heard that term before?
I have.
Yeah, I've heard it, but to be honest, I'm not sure I completely understand it.
So microaggressions are those subtle and often unintentional comments or actions that convey prejudice or hostility towards someone based on their race.
Okay.
It can be something as small as, clutching your purse a little tighter when you pass someone of a certain race,
Oh.
or, complimenting someone on how articulate they are, implying surprise because of their race.
Right.
They might not be intended to be harmful, but they reinforce stereotypes and can really impact the person on the other end.
Wow. I had never thought of it that way. That really makes you think about your own behavior and the messages you might be sending.
Right.
So besides microaggressions, what other symptoms does this racism virus have?
Another big one is unconscious bias.
Oh.
And this is where we harbor prejudices without even realizing it, often due to societal conditioning or ingrained stereotypes.
Right.
It can influence our decisions, actions, and how we see other people, even if we think we're fair and unbiased.
Yeah, that's a bit scary to think about, isn't it?
It is.
That we could be perpetuating racism without being aware of it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this is where the idea of asymptomatic carriers comes in.
Exactly. Just like someone can carry a virus without showing symptoms,
Right.
people can harbor and spread racist ideas without realizing it.
Wow.
It's why it's so important to be self-aware and to examine our own biases and be willing to learn and unlearn harmful beliefs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about transmission and symptoms, but what about those who are most susceptible to this virus, who is most vulnerable?
Well, Dr. Magadza highlights a few groups
Okay.
that are particularly vulnerable to the racism virus, including children, minorities, and people with mental health issues.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, children are still developing their understanding of the world.
Right.
They haven't really formed their critical thinking skills. So they're more likely to internalize the messages that they hear from adults, the media, or even their peers.
And minorities often face systemic barriers and discrimination,
Right.
which can make them more vulnerable to the negative impacts of the racism virus.
And I imagine individuals who are struggling with mental health issues
Yes.
might already feel marginalized or isolated, making them more susceptible to the effects of prejudice and discrimination.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the concept of immunity.
Right.
So just like our bodies have immune systems to fight off viruses,
Right.
Dr. Magadza suggests that we need to build up our societal immunity to racism.
So what are the antibodies in this scenario? Is there a vaccine against racism?
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
I wish, while there is no magic injection,
Right.
Dr. Magadza believes that knowledge is a really powerful tool.
Okay.
Just like understanding how a virus works helps us to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the mechanisms of racism can help us build resistance.
Okay.
She emphasizes the importance of inclusive education, challenging stereotypes, promoting diversity, and actively combating racist ideas.
So it sounds a lot like what we all had to do during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Learn about the virus, change our behaviors, and get vaccinated.
Right.
But instead of masks and social distancing, we're talking about self-reflection, critical thinking, and actively challenging prejudice.
Exactly. And just like we had public health campaigns to combat COVID-19,
Right.
we need to be more proactive in addressing racism at a societal level.
For sure.
This isn't just about individual actions. It's about creating a culture that rejects racism in all its forms.
I really like that. I'm also really intrigued by this idea of expanding how we define racism.
Yeah.
It's not just a black and white issue, is it?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Dr. Magadza pushes us to move beyond that oversimplified view.
Okay.
In fact, she outlines 5 distinct types of racism to help us understand the nuances and complexities of the issue.
5 types.
5 types.
That's a lot more than what's usually discussed.
Yeah.
Could you break them down for us?
Of course.
Okay.
So the first type is what we often think of as traditional racism, individual racism.
Okay.
This is when one person discriminates against another based solely on their race.
Okay, that one seems pretty straightforward.
Yes.
What about the other 4?
The second type is individual plus power.
Okay.
This is when someone in a position of authority uses their power to discriminate against others based on race.
Hmm?
So it could be a boss who only promotes people of a certain race, or a teacher who disciplines students of color more harshly than white students.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. Highlighting how power dynamics can amplify the effects of racism.
Yeah.
So what about the other 3 types?
The third type is structural or systemic racism.
Okay.
This is where racism is baked into the very systems and institutions of our society.
Wow.
It's the laws, the policies and practices that create and perpetuate racial inequality, often without any conscious intent on the part of individuals.
So even if everyone suddenly became colorblind, we could still have racism built into the fabric of our society.
Exactly. And this is where things can get tricky.
Right.
Because dismantling structural racism requires more than just changing hearts and minds. It requires systemic change.
Right.
It's about challenging and dismantling those policies and practices that have historically disadvantaged certain racial groups.
This is heavy stuff.
It is.
So what about the 4th type?
The 4th type is intra-ethnic group racism.
All right.
This one might be a little less familiar to people,
Okay.
but it refers to prejudice and discrimination that occurs within a racial group, often based on differences in skin tone or cultural background or perceived authenticity.
Oh, wow. So it's like racism within a race.
Yes.
I never really thought about it like that.
It's a complex issue that often gets overlooked, but it's important to acknowledge because it can have a real impact on individuals and communities.
Right.
For example, colorism, which is discrimination based on skin tone, is a form of intra-ethnic group racism that can be very harmful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
It shows that racism isn't just about black and white,
Yeah.
but the nuances and complexities within racial groups.
Yes.
What about the 5th and final type?
The 5th type is religious discrimination.
Okay.
While not technically a form of racism, it often intersects with it, particularly when religious differences are intertwined with racial or ethnic groups.
So, for example, discrimination against Muslims, which is often fueled by Islamophobia,
Yes.
can be considered both religious discrimination and a form of racism.
Exactly.
Got that.
And this just highlights how important it is to take an intersectional approach to understanding and combating these forms of oppression.
Okay, so we've got these 5 types of racism, each with its own characteristics and challenges.
Right.
But what do you think is the most valuable takeaway from Dr. Magadza's framework for understanding racism?
I think one of the most powerful things about this framework
Yeah.
is that it challenges that black and white view of racism.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us see that anyone can be both a perpetrator and a victim of racism.
Wow.
And it forces us to confront the ways that we might be contributing to the problem.
I'm starting to see how this virus analogy can be really helpful
Yeah.
for understanding the complexities of racism.
It is.
Like, it makes you think about how you might be spreading the virus.
Right.
Or even being infected without realizing it.
Yes, absolutely.
So have you ever caught yourself exhibiting any of these types of racism, maybe unintentionally? It's a tough question,
It is.
but I think it's one we all need to ask ourselves.
Absolutely. And to help us answer that question and figure out where we stand in terms of understanding and addressing racism, Dr. Magazza offers another really insightful tool.
Okay, before we jump into that, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive deeper into Dr. Magazza's 6 stages framework and explore how it can help us map our own individual journeys toward becoming more anti-racist.
Sounds good. So you mentioned Dr. Magazza's 6 stages framework,
Yeah,
which sounds like a fascinating way to assess our own understanding of racism.
it is.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so basically it's a tool to help you pinpoint where you fall on a spectrum of understanding and addressing racism.
Okay.
So imagine a scale with like positive and negative ends.
Mm-hmm.
The positive side represents, progress towards understanding and actively combating racism.
Right.
While the negative side shows a deeper entrenchment in racist thinking and behavior.
Okay, so as we move along the spectrum, we can either progress towards a deeper understanding and commitment to anti-racism, or we can slip further into racist thinking.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. It's dynamic, not static.
Okay.
So you can move up or down the spectrum,
Gotcha.
depending on your actions, your awareness, even the company you keep, and the information you consume.
Wow, that's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So where on this spectrum does Dr. Magazza place those who are most deeply entrenched in racist ideologies?
So at the very bottom stage, -6,
Okay.
we find the extremists,
Okay.
think hate groups,
Yeah.
leaders who actively spread hate and incite violence.
Right.
Sadly, these individuals are fully committed to racist beliefs and are often very dangerous.
That's chilling.
It is.
But thankfully, those individuals represent a small minority.
Yeah.
So what about the rest of that negative side of the spectrum?
So moving up from stage -6,
Okay.
we come to stage -5, which Dr. Magazza describes as deeply entrenched racist views.
Okay.
These individuals might not be leading hate groups,
Right.
but they actively share their biases and try to convert others to their way of thinking.
So these are the folks who dominate those family gatherings with their opinions and try to convince everyone that they're right.
You got it.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that their views can be very harmful, even if they don't resort to violence.
Right.
Then we have stage -4, anger and blaming.
Okay.
This stage is characterized by a tendency to blame minorities for their problems.
Mm-hmm.
They buy into those us versus them narratives and often resort to scapegoating.
Yeah, I've encountered that type of thinking before.
Yeah.
It seems like it often arises during times of economic hardship or social unrest,
Right.
when people are looking for someone to blame
Yeah.
for their struggles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it shows how fear and insecurity can be fertile ground for those ideologies to take root.
It's true.
Now, moving up closer to neutral territory,
Okay.
we have stage -3, denial.
Okay.
So people at this stage might be aware of racism,
Hmm.
but they downplay its significance or refuse to acknowledge its systemic nature.
So they might say things like, oh, it's not that bad.
Or everyone's making everything about race these days.
Yep. Those are classic hallmarks of denial.
Yeah.
It's a way to avoid the discomfort of actually confronting the reality.
Makes sense.
Then we have stage -2, which is the dismissive and avoidant.
Okay.
These individuals might acknowledge that racism exists, but they just actively avoid any conversations about it.
Right.
They'd rather stay in their comfort zone and pretend it's not a real issue.
Gotcha. So they're burying their heads in the sand
Yes.
rather than facing reality.
Exactly.
But what about the positive side of this spectrum?
Okay.
Where do we start to see a shift towards that understanding and a commitment to anti-racism?
Well, the first stage on the positive side
Okay.
is stage +1, which is unaware.
Okay.
This is where many people start their journey.
Mm-hmm.
They might not even realize that racial inequality or bias even exists.
Right.
Or they might hold those colorblind views that we talked about earlier.
Right. Right. The I don't see color approach.
Right.
Which can be more harmful than helpful. Yeah, it can be, because it dismisses the very real ways that race impacts people's lives.
For sure.
Then we move to stage +2,
Okay.
where individuals become aware of racial issues,
Okay.
but might still be dismissive or avoidant.
Right. So similar to the -2 stage.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's like reaching a fork in the road.
Yeah.
You can either choose to confront those issues head on and move toward greater understanding, or you can retreat back into avoidance and denial.
Gotcha.
Now, stage +3 is where things start to shift significantly.
Okay.
This is where people become aware of racial issues and begin to question their own biases. They're open to learning and growing,
Yeah.
and they're starting to recognize the systemic nature of racism.
That's a crucial step in the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Admitting you have blind spots.
Yes.
It's never easy, but it's essential for personal growth.
It is.
And becoming a better ally.
Couldn't agree more. And that brings us to stage +4, which is open to learning. This is where people actively seek out information. They engage in conversations,
Right.
and they challenge their own perceptions.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to ask questions, even if they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And they're committed to educating themselves about the history and complexities of racism.
That's fantastic. It sounds like they're building those antibodies that we talked about earlier.
They are.
Yeah.
And then comes stage +5, the ability to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
At this stage, people can connect the dots and see how history, power structures, and policies all contribute to systemic racism.
Yeah.
They understand that it's not just about individual actions,
Yeah.
but about dismantling those systems that perpetuate inequality.
Now we're talking, this is where real change can happen.
Yes.
Moving beyond individual actions and tackling the root causes of the problem.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And finally, we reach the pinnacle of this journey, stage +6, leadership.
Okay.
At this stage, individuals become true allies. They advocate for justice, speak out against racism, and inspire others to do the same.
Wow.
They use their voices and their platforms to amplify marginalized voices and fight for systemic change.
Wow, what a journey.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that this isn't a destination,
Right.
but an ongoing process of learning and growth and action.
And I think it's important to remember that we can move back and forth along this spectrum.
Right.
You know, we might have moments of clarity and progress followed by periods of doubt or even regression.
Yeah.
The key is to keep striving for greater understanding and to never stop challenging ourselves and those around us.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening, where do you think you fall on this spectrum?
Yeah, think about your behaviors, the language you use,
Right.
the environments you're in,
Yeah.
and the information you consume.
Yeah. And most importantly, ask yourself, what's the next step in my journey toward becoming more anti-racist?
Such an important question
It is.
for all of us.
And speaking of learning and growth, let's get back to Dr. Magadz's book and those virus metaphors.
Okay.
She goes into some really interesting detail about antigens and antibodies
Yes.
in the context of racism.
What's so clever about her approach
Yeah.
is how she defines antigens as those warning signs of racism.
Okay.
Those subtle cues, the biased language,
Mm-hmm.
the stereotypes that often fly under the radar,
Yeah.
but they perpetuate harmful beliefs.
It's like those subtle symptoms you might ignore until things get really bad.
Yeah.
But in this case, ignoring them allows the racism virus to spread unchecked.
Absolutely.
So what are the antibodies that we can use to fight these antigens?
Well, Dr. Magadza doesn't just offer these vague solutions.
Okay.
She provides really specific, actionable antibodies.
Okay, like what?
Things like inclusive education,
Okay.
calling out stereotypes when you see them,
Right.
promoting diversity in our communities and workplaces, and really pushing for meaningful integration. It's not just about tolerating differences,
Right.
but genuinely understanding and valuing them.
This is where I think it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
She brings up how social media can be both a vector for the virus,
Right.
spreading misinformation and hate,
Yeah.
but also a platform for developing antibodies.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
It can be a breeding ground for those super spreader events where harmful ideas run rampant.
Right.
But it can also be a really powerful tool
Yeah.
for connection, for education, for activism.
Mm-hmm.
We can use it to connect with diverse voices,
Right.
challenge harmful narratives,
Yeah.
and build those crucial antibodies
Mm-hmm.
through shared knowledge and understanding.
So it's like a battleground
It is.
where the virus and the antibodies are competing.
Yeah,
It makes you realize how important it is to be mindful of what you're consuming and sharing online.
absolutely. And this brings on to another chilling concept.
Okay.
Dr. Magadza explores silent carriers. Just like with a virus, Some people might be unknowingly spreading racist ideas
Wow.
through casual conversation,
Yeah.
their silence when they see prejudice,
Right.
or even seemingly harmless jokes.
It's like a stealth mode for racism,
It is.
spreading under the guise of normalcy.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
How do we combat something we might not even recognize as harmful?
It starts with recognizing those subtle signs,
Okay.
being aware of our own biases,
Right.
not letting low-level racism become normalized in our circles.
Yeah.
Remember, even those seemingly harmless comments can really contribute to a toxic environment.
I'm curious, what are your super spreader avoidance strategies?
Mm.
You know, those real-life situations
Yeah.
where you might encounter those subtle but harmful racist ideas?
Right.
Do you call them out? Do you educate?
Mm.
Do you avoid? How do you navigate those situations?
You know, it really depends on the context.
Okay.
Sometimes a gentle question or a reframing of the issue can be effective. You might say something like, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. Can you explain?
Right.
Other times, a more direct approach might be necessary.
Okay.
You might say, I don't think that's appropriate. That kind of language perpetuates harmful stereotypes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, for your own mental health and safety, it's best to disengage.
Right.
You can choose not to participate or to remove yourself from the situation.
It's like choosing your battles,
It is.
knowing when to engage, educate, or just walk away.
Right.
And I think it's important to remember that we all have different levels of comfort and experience
Yes.
when it comes to addressing these issues.
You're absolutely right. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
The key is to be mindful.
Mm-hmm.
Use your best judgment and prioritize your own well-being.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, this next part really blew my mind.
Okay.
Dr. Vedza talks about the conditions that allow the racism virus to flourish.
Right.
And it's eerily similar to what we saw during the COVID lockdowns.
Oh.
Remember how isolation, echo chambers, and lack of diverse perspectives created breeding grounds for the virus to spread,
Right.
like wildfire?
Yeah.
She argues that those same conditions create fertile ground for the racism virus to thrive.
Wow.
Think about it. Isolation, whether online or in real life. It cuts us off from diverse perspectives and reinforces our own biases.
Yeah.
Echo chambers, where we only hear voices that agree with our own, amplify those biases and make it harder to challenge our own assumptions.
Right.
And a lack of diverse perspectives creates such a narrow and distorted view of the world, making us more susceptible to prejudice and discrimination.
It's true.
She has this really evocative term
Yeah.
for these echo chambers.
Yeah. What is it?
She calls them caves of privilege.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good.
Which highlights how these echo chambers are often spaces where people with privilege can shield themselves
Yeah.
from confronting their own biases
Right.
and the realities of racism.
Absolutely. It's like creating that petri dish for the virus to grow unchecked.
So the question becomes, how do we break down these caves
Yeah.
and create environments where open and honest conversations can happen safely?
Right.
Because these conversations can be really tough.
They can.
And it's easy to feel uncomfortable or afraid of saying the wrong thing.
It is.
So how do we do that?
It takes a combination of individual and collective action on an individual level.
Yeah.
It requires vulnerability, empathy, a willingness to listen and learn.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to acknowledge our own biases,
Right.
even if it's uncomfortable.
Right.
We need to approach these conversations with humility and a genuine desire to understand different perspectives.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to make mistakes and learn from them.
So it's about creating a space where people feel safe to ask questions and challenge their assumptions and maybe even stumble a bit without fear of judgment.
Absolutely. It's like building that societal immune system that we talked about earlier, but on a more personal level.
Yeah, like a relational level.
Exactly.
And on a collective level.
Yeah.
We need to create more opportunities for these conversations to happen.
Right.
In safe and structured environments, whether it's workshops, community dialogues, or even intentional conversations with family and friends.
Right.
We need to foster a culture where open dialogue about race is encouraged and normalized.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a lot of work,
It is.
but it's also a really hopeful vision
That is.
for a future where we can address these issues head on
Yeah.
and build a more just and equitable society.
I agree.
And I think one of the most compelling arguments Dr. Magadza makes
Yeah.
is that the global coordinated response that we saw to the pandemic offers a powerful model for tackling racism,
She's right.
Remember how we had scientists, governments, healthcare workers, and everyday people from all over the world working together,
Yeah.
sharing information, developing vaccines, supporting each other. It was a monumental effort
It was.
that showed the power of collective action.
It did.
I love that idea.
It is powerful.
What if we could channel that same energy,
Yeah.
that sense of urgency and collaboration, but for social justice?
Yeah.
Imagine what we could accomplish if we brought that level of commitment and innovation to the fight against racism.
She believes we need that same level of urgency and collaboration to really address this issue. We need to break down silos, share knowledge and resources, develop effective interventions, and commit to dismantling those systems that perpetuate inequality.
I'm on board with that vision.
Yeah.
But there's this question that keeps nagging at me.
What's that?
If racism is truly like a virus, is eradication even possible?
Right.
Or are we just talking about learning to manage it and building immunity and constantly adapting our defenses? Because viruses are tricky. They mutate, they find new ways to spread, and they're constantly evolving.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that Dr. Magadza doesn't shy away from.
So we were talking about that big question. Can we ever truly eradicate racism?
Right.
Or is it more about learning to manage it, building immunity, and constantly adapting our defenses?
Well, Dr. Magadza acknowledges how complex that question is.
Right.
She doesn't give us easy answers or, suggest there's some quick fix to this problem. In fact, she cautions that new variants of racism will inevitably emerge, requiring us to adapt our antibodies and stay vigilant.
It's like that saying, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
Right.
But in this case, it's the price of a just and equitable society.
Exactly.
We can't just declare victory and think the work is done.
It's an ongoing process, not a one-time solution.
Right. And it's not just about individual actions. It requires systemic change.
Absolutely.
We need to constantly be evaluating our institutions, our laws, our policies. And make sure they're not creating breeding grounds for this virus to thrive.
Right. It's a constant process of evolution, learning and adaptation.
Just like scientists had to adjust their approach as the pandemic unfolded. We need to be flexible and responsive in our fight against racism.
Because what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. And we need to be prepared to adapt.
To adapt our strategies as new challenges emerge.
And just like we learned from the pandemic, prevention is key. Early intervention, education, and fostering environments where diversity is celebrated and inclusion is the norm.
Those are the ways we build up those societal antibodies that can protect us from this racism virus.
It's about creating a culture where racism just can't take hold.
I love that.
Where people are aware of their own biases.
Willing to challenge prejudice and discrimination. And where they work to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
That's a future worth fighting for.
Absolutely. And it's a future we can build together. It starts with each of us committing to learn, to act, and to challenge those ideas.
Wherever we encounter them.
Wherever we encounter them.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
I know I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on racism.
You too.
And a renewed sense of urgency to do my part. In building that better future.
Absolutely.
I think one of the most important takeaways from all of this is that understanding is the first step towards change.
The more we learn about the mechanisms of racism, how it spreads, how it impacts people, and how we can combat it, the better equipped we'll be to create that world free from its harmful effects.
If this deep dive has sparked your interest, I really encourage you to check out Dr. Magadza's book. It's a good read.
It's called First Draft of Racism Was a Virus. How can we stop it spreading and how would we eradicate it? It is a challenging read.
It is.
But it's necessary.
It is.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
If we can mobilize that same global effort that we saw during the pandemic, the scientific ingenuity, the collaboration, the sheer willpower.
Well, it's impressive.
It was, imagine the progress we can make against this virus of racism. It starts with each of us.
It does.
Committing to learn to act and to challenge those harmful ideas wherever we encounter them.
You got it.
Because building a more just and equitable world is a responsibility we all share.
Absolutely.
So until next time, fellow deep divers, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those antibodies strong.